Hey guys. So yeah, we're here in the studio, Rema Morning Studio. So we're here, we're gonna do our live today. It's a little bit more cleaner than having a weird split screen on my iPhone XR, and can't have three people on there. But yeah, we're happy to have you guys here. We're doing a little Bible study sessions that we've been doing every Friday at 8. Except this time we're doing it on live. Just in case you guys have missed out, we've been doing the Bible Project. Each week we have a Bible devotional type thing, and we talk about it. And it's been really, for me, it's been really well. Like it's been a good positive thing because of course not a Bible genius, so it really helps me read the Bible and it explain things well. So this week we have Belen and Josue with us. Say hi again.
Hi. Again.
Wow, please have more emotions. Alright, but anyways, since they're very silent and awkward, this week we did the water of life. So we're gonna go, they have their 3 discussion points, and we all chose our discussion point, and we're gonna show you guys, I guess, our point of views and our personal experiences, because I feel like the most important thing is to be transparent with you guys. Because again, you guys aren't alone, you're not the only one going through certain things, I'm pretty sure at one point everyone has gone through what you've gone through, But with that, thanks again for Rema Mornings for letting us use the studio, the trap house. But yeah, we're gonna go ahead and start it off again. The topic is water of life, and we're gonna start with a prayer, and then we'll get to everything. So, all right, you ready? Close your eyes. Close your eyes. All right. Thank you. All right. Thank you, God, for having us here today. We ask for your blessing as we go on this live, Lord, and we pray that these words are your words and they touch someone, Lord, that needs it. In the name of Jesus, Lord, I pray that this be a blessing for anyone who's watching and anyone who is not watching. We still pray over them, Lord. And as we start, let's ask for your blessing and your spirit to guide us. In the name of Jesus, amen.
Amen.
All right, so Belen, since you are the first victim, you want to go ahead and start it off?
No.
Okay, great.
Es cierto.
This is hype.
Thank you, Chris, por invitarme.
I didn't invite you, girl.
Sí me invitaste. Bueno, me voy. No, es cierto. Gracias, Chris, por invitarme. Y bueno, este espacio se crea para hablar de cosas en general que nos ayudan a acercarnos más a Dios, y creo que es un proyecto que poco a poco se puede ir creciendo. Entonces el día de ahora vamos a hablar, como dijo Chris, Water of Life, y habla sobre bastantes historias de la Biblia, y all the Bible stories are very interesting, and y todas terminan con un punto muy específico, que es como how God is the water of life.
Yep.
And la primera historia habla sobre Jeremías. Lo voy a tratar de decir en inglés por primera vez.
Spanglish.
Jeremiah.
There we go. That's what we do.
Okay. The first story talks about Jeremiah and la discusión que tenemos aquí, y habla sobre la importancia de la, ¿cómo dijiste, Jay?
Urgency.
Sí, urgency. Pero pero antes les quiero hacer una pregunta a Chris y a Chochi.
Okay.
¿Alguna vez ustedes no han tenido agua en su vida?
Yes, but not for long.
Okay. ¿Cuánto tiempo?
Probably like a day. They're fixing the tub,
Okay. You're lucky. Okay. Chochi.
Yeah, me too. I was at school, and a couple things. So there's one time that they turned off the water for like a day, not that long, and then they only had cold water for a week.
Yes, that's the best.
It was a fun time, really good time.
Okay, yo no he tenido agua por, yo creo, varios días, como 2-3 semanas.
No te bañaste.
No me bañé.
3
Y
weeks.
fue una semana complicada porque por más cochino que seas, te tienes que bañar en algún punto. Y cuando estaba leyendo eso, I was remembering my last trip to Mexico.
Shout out Mexico.
Mis tíos me acomodaron en su casa. Entonces ellos estaban teniendo este problema con el agua. Ellos viven en la casa pastoral, aquí no se usa, pero es una casa next to the church or in the church.
Very
in this
nice,
case.
very nice.
Entonces tenían esta casa next to the church, pero la iglesia tenía agua, pero la casa, como era nueva, todavía no tenían todo para el agua. Entonces era algo bien chistoso porque teníamos que la casa estaba en el third floor, ajá, en el tercer piso, y donde estaba el agua, y en medio estaba el templo y abajo estaban los baños. Entonces ahí nos teníamos que bañar y todo eso. Entonces yo, la verdad, se me hacía muy complicado bañarme y no me bañé
That's
por
disgusting.
como 3 días. Para el cuarto día ya estaba. Dije, no, ni modo, sea agua fría, caliente, lo que sea, pero me tengo que bañar. Entonces, me di cuenta, cuando me bañé me sentía como otra persona, era como que nací otra vez. Entonces, yo creo que algún momento nos hemos sentido como sudamos bastante o generamos nuestra propia suciedad, que a veces hasta nos damos asco y nos tenemos que bañar. Entonces el agua en realidad tiene 2 funciones y el agua sabemos que es muy importante, lo enseñan en las escuelas, bla bla bla. Voy a tratar de hablar inglés porque ya me estoy yendo en español. Y luego me regaña el presidente.
I don't say
¿Qué?
You lost your train of thought.
Oh, sí. The water has 2 important things, that is hydrate and clean us. And those are the main things that water do to us. And if we think in our spiritual lives where God put this kind of metaphor in which they say that He is the water of life, and then He say, but He's the water of life, and you have to drink me and like to become alive. And sometimes we, ¿cómo se dice? ¿Cómo deshidratar? Dehydrate. Ajá, esa palabra. Como dehydrate, and we feel like something is missing.
Yeah.
And es lo que dice lo primero, pero ya yendo al punto que es como a little introduction, pero yendo ya al punto que mi parte habla sobre Jeremías. En Jeremiah era was a prophet, and in the discussion only talks about the Jeremiah chapter 2, but I want to talk a little of chapter number 1, que dice que es como the calling of God de Jeremías. ¿Cómo?
The calling?
¿Cómo se dice calling?
Calling.
Yeah.
You
got it right.
¿Cómo se dice
You were
calling?
thinking.
Ok. Sí, era el calling de Jeremiah, y Dios le dice exactamente, creo que en el versículo.
I thought you had it memorized.
No. Jeremiah 1:19, they will fight against you, but will not overcome you, for I am with you, and I will rescue you, declares the Lord. And the Lord like creates like this protection where that Jeremiah feels like safe, because he knows that his job is a tough job, porque les va a ir a decir a las naciones malas noticias.
Yeah.
Entonces, en Jeremiah chapter 2, Jeremiah starts talking about the first like declaration of the bad news to the people, and during the first 12 verses, he starts saying like, you como no me obedecen, and no, o sea, ¿qué he hecho yo que ustedes no, qué mal, Dios como que los confronta y dice qué es lo que yo he hecho mal para que ustedes me traicionen prácticamente.
That's true.
Entonces
True.
entonces en el verso 12 habla de lo que vamos a hablar un poco más ahorita, que dice Jeremiah chapter 2 verse 13, dice, my people have committed two sins. They have forsaken me, the spring of living water, and have their own cistern, broken cisterns that cannot hold water. Entonces dice, se olvidaron, they forgot that I am the living water. O sea, eran dos pecados de los que el corazón de Dios estaba como roto.
Yeah.
Entonces, uno era el olvidarse de Dios, que Dios era el agua que saciaba la sed, que era el agua que saciaba, o sea, que era el todo, ¿no? Y dos, que hicieron cisternas, cisterns.
Yeah, cisterns.
But
Describe what that is.
good.
It's like a pot with a little grate on the bottom.
Okay.
I had to Google that. I was like, what is that?
Yo también le busqué.
Yeah, that's
la
important.
foto,
You know,
sí.
he's basically saying you have this pot that's not even holding water. You know.
Entonces dice, these are you create your own broken cisterns that cannot hold no water, creo que dice. Y creo que eso fue lo que más me llamó la atención de esto, la última parte, y pensando sobre esta parte, qué significa en realidad broken cisterns. Y creo que significa como regresando a los pecados, que dice que se olvidaron de mí, que soy el agua viva, y you create your own broken cisterns that cannot hold no water, and sometimes we create our own paths that we think that lead to something important, but actually didn't go anywhere. Y creo que es un poco de lo que Dios les está demandando en esta parte, que dice I am the living water, y tú no puedes like hold anything because you don't have any water in your life. ¿Cómo puedes decir que estás creando un camino que te lleva tal vez a la salvación o tal vez al éxito, pero no te crea nada? O sea, y en este caso, regresando a todos los versículos anteriores, era algo serio, porque they used to adore Baal, and searching in this topic, I saw a very good video, que decía que llegaron al punto de que they used to adore God in the temple, and when they leave the temple they adore other gods, y esos dioses, they used to sacrifice children. And how can they do that and say that God is my Lord and everything? And entonces en parte sí se merecían lo que lo que Dios les estaba diciendo, pero they just forgot, and forgot. O sea, forgetting things is about that happens to all of us, but I think en mi clase de psicología dice en paréntesis, en mi clase de psicología dice que cuando te llega algo y como que tienes que estar repitiendo las cosas para que se te pegue, como sticks to your mind, pero si no lo repites, corres el riesgo de que se vaya. o otras cosas, puedes recordarlo, pero si haces algo que te llama la atención o que es muy importante para ti.
Yeah.
Entonces, porque thinking about why they forgot that God was the living water for them, es porque no les importaba. O sea, y a veces siento que nos pasa a nosotros. We forgot that God is our living water. Porque estamos como pensando en la pandemia y todo esto y el fin del mundo y todo eso. Y a veces es como nos ahogamos también en nuestros propios problemas y qué pasa sobre Dios. Entonces, las dos preguntas que vienen aquí que más o menos encajan en mi propia vida es sobre las veces que me he sentido como anxious.
Well, just anxious, like a time. So let's think about this. So, like, when was the time you, Belen, went through something hard? What did you use to help you go through that? You know, like, say you're super depressed, you know? Like, who do you call? Or, you know, are you talking to your mom? Talking to Manuel? You know,
Right
like,
on the spot.
So, who are you talking to? Or what are you doing?
Usually I talk to Ángel.
Okay.
Her
Mi
boyfriend.
novio. Mi novio.
Oh,
Your
man.
boyfriend.
What?
You're not allowed to date. What is that?
Sí, hablo con él sobre casi todo lo que pasa en mi vida. Y a veces es como que lo digo, pero él también es humano y y a veces me da risa porque le digo cosas y él pero pues no tengo nada que decir. O sea, I don't have anything to say to you to comfort you and you feel better. I can just listen to you and then I'm okay. And what else? ¿Qué hago?
That helps.
So at that point, what do you do? Like, you just kind of
sí, como que sí se te olvida que Dios está ahí.
Yeah.
Y constantemente. Como que sí se te olvida.
Okay.
Entonces creo que sí es fácil olvidar. Es fácil olvidar y es algo que cada día se tiene que estar recordando.
Yeah.
Que Dios está ahí para hidratarnos, to hydrate us, and to clean us every day. Así como tomamos agua cada día, God is there for cleaning us and hydrating us.
Yes, ma'am.
Entonces sí.
Okay, so that's cool. So yeah, so your whole discussion one is, what do I do when I need an anchor? Like some people, like Belen, talks to her boyfriend. Chochi might. Yeah, I talk to him. Sometimes
Girlfriend.
I
He's taken, ladies.
Honestly,
Jesus.
Genesis.
I stay up late at night crying to her.
Jeez.
But yeah, no, like honestly, we usually tend to go to people we trust. Do you feel like you trust Angel more than God sometimes?
I think I'm more used to talk to Angel whatever when I get mad, but I forgot to. It's not something that it's bad, but I forgot to go to God first.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people have that issue.
That's okay though.
Y creo que es algo que se tiene que como a crear un hábito, porque cómo vas a, no sé, cómo vas a, y no es como que a veces Dios me hable, qué miedo, que Dios me hable al oído, casi siempre es por un pensamiento, es como que estoy en mi mundo y luego es como que acuérdate de esto, y es como que sí es cierto, qué tonta. Es como que sí es cierto, o sea, ¿por qué no lo hice? ¿Por qué no me di cuenta que Dios era el que estaba ahí.
Yeah.
Entonces sí, a veces sí siento que voy con Ángel o con... A veces depende de la situación con mis papás en cosas antes de ir a Dios y decirle a Dios porque son las cosas.
Okay, so that works. So that's essentially the first topic, right? You know, we tend, like in this instance, like they're talking about the water of life, you know, like what do we tend to go to first? You know, are we going to drink his water, or are we going to some random well in the desert, you know? And then emphasis on the desert, like this is talking about basically death, you know, like this desert isn't a nice place to be drinking water from, you know. It's not somewhere you want to be quenching your thirst, you know. I'm not gonna go hang out with some camels when Jesus is in Fairfax, or, you know, like, or Jesus isn't just in general anywhere, you know. But yeah, this leads to a discussion too, which I'm gonna do, you know.
It's Chris's topic.
Yes.
Our MC.
This is kind of close to home for me, because chill, because this is something I gone through, not recent, it started a while ago, but this is talking about Isaiah 43, and what I got from Isaiah 43 was, you know, he reminds us that he's powerful, you know, he once raised armies, he split the waters, you know, all that. And then he also reminds us that he's going to bring water in these places of drought, you know. In that, literally, he means, you know, spiritually, or just, you know, water. He keeps talking about a sun-baked earth, you know. So that could signify anything, you know. In my life, that was a time when your boy was not in church too much, you know. So
Facts.
Yeah, everyone goes through some seasons.
Facts.
But one of the questions is, what do you resonate with the image of living in a dry and desolate desert? So I'm going to give you guys, you know, an example. When I got out of high school, you know, everything went downhill. When I got out of high school, you know, and essentially started, you know, first 2 years NOAA, right? That's when essentially I started losing all my friends, you know. You come out of high school, you were friends with all these dudes, probably, you know, smoking pot, whatever, drinking, whatever, you know.
Doing what?
I didn't partake in that, you know.
Oh my god. Marijuana?
What is that?
What's that?
But yeah, like, you know, like, these are the surroundings you have around you, right? And slowly I started feeling out of place at church because Chochi was gone. My friend Nate had left. Omar Gabriel had left. Like, slowly they were depleting, either, you know, just not going to church, or, you know, going to army, college, whatever. So at that point, that was probably the loneliest moment of my life in church, you know, because essentially, like, you know, I didn't want to be in church in the first place, you know. I was just like, I was never like that, oh, 18, I'm out, you know, whatever.
Facts.
But it was lonely. It was, you know, essentially everyone wants to be a part of, like, a community, you know. And there were a lot of times I would come to church on Sundays and I'm like, what the heck am I doing here, you know? Literally sitting by myself like a loser. And I remember Brian and, like, Henny trying to make me hang out with them to go to eat, and I was like, okay, they're nice, but where's Chochi, you know? Or, like, you know, where are my friends? Because it was hard to connect with these guys. They were like 6-7 years older than me, you know?
Yeah.
So I went down this path, very narrow, painful path, you know, you learn from your mistakes. And I started hanging out with people. And like it says, like, what's your image of living in a desolate desert? That was me going into areas of my life, like, you know, hanging out with the wrong people, doing the wrong things because I thought it was going to make me happy, you know? Or I was like, oh, this is better than being at church, you know? And then the second part of this question is, what kind of water or relief do you find yourself longing for? I think at that moment, I was just trying to feel a part of something. And at that moment, going to parties or whatever made me feel more of a part of something than church was, you know? Not blaming the church, like, oh, they didn't talk to me, like, whatever. You know, like, I didn't really want them to talk to me anyways, you know?
Daniel no le
no, they didn't talk to me. But, essentially, you know, like, I went down this path, and, you know, started dating, whatever. Like, and those were very painful moments where it taught me a lot of things, you know? You touch the stove, you burn your hand.
That's facts too.
And it was a big growing part of my life because I essentially learned what not to do, what was not making me happy, you know? And essentially, like, at first, you know, these pleasures, these joys are very temporary. Just like the drinking out of a well in a desert, you know, like you drink this water, sure, your thirst is good for now, but what about in 5 minutes when you're walking back from that well, you know? Like, you're always going to be thirsty. And this was where the idea comes of drinking from Jesus, you know, because he will quench that thirst. Because no matter how many parties I went to or whatever I did, I felt empty at night, you know? You still wake up and you're like, is this it? You know, like, am I supposed to go to a club every Saturday and be happy? Like, is happiness only at, you know, Cafe Rio or whatever? Like, you know, like, whatever it is, you know? So that was a very dark moment. And then I remember this one time, I forgot who the heck prayed for me, to be honest. I don't remember. A lot of people prayed for me, you know? He called me out and he was like, I saw that you felt lonely. And I was like, yeah. And he's like, and you feel out of place. And I was like, heck yeah, I do. You know, like, he was like, God told me to tell you the reason why you feel out of place is because you were never meant to blend in. And sometimes you don't realize at that moment or in the future you're meant to do something else. You know, you're not supposed to be doing what everyone else is doing. And I think that's hard getting out of high school because you're still young and you see everyone is doing this, and social media is a big lie because they look happy, you know? You base your happiness off of likes, you base your happiness off of popularity. Because I feel like throughout high school I tried being popular, you know, always trying to hang out with like the little cholios or whatever, you know?
The Spanish people.
I remember I tried so hard to fit in. Like, I mean, I did fit in. They ended up calling me cholo. I remember I got my mom to buy me some South Pole jeans that were 3 times my size. And I thought it was gangster as hell. Like, I got that little belt that dangled up in the front. And I was like, what's up? You know, like, you know, hey, man, you know, like, whatever. But yeah, that was me. For me, that's an image, you know, like you're walking through this time period in your life where you don't know what the heck you're doing, and essentially, like, where I was meant to die there, you know. That wasn't a good place. It's not anything flourishing out of a club, you know. There's nothing there. And that leads to the next point, you know. What is your current connection with God? You know, are you happy with it? By far a lot better than where I was, but I feel like there's always room to improve in that area, you know. There's never enough you can learn from God, or, you know, you never be like, hey, I know everything, you know, whatever, now I can preach to whoever and they're just gonna start falling down. Like, nah, that's not gonna happen. But for sure, I feel like I'm in a better place. I don't know if you guys watch Rumor Mornings, but Daniel was talking about how I never really cared about anything. That was spot on, my boy. Like, I hated probably half the people, you know, I was pissed, you know, always. I used to punch walls, whatever, you know?
Good times.
Yeah. Like, good times. You know, wake up, my hands all bleeding, you know, whatever, you know? But yeah, like, God molded me into what I am now, I guess. And, I guess at a certain point, you know, you don't want to do those things all the time and whatever, but it helps create who you're going to become and who you can eventually reach out to. But after all that, you know, like, we still want to find a way to get out of that desert. You know, we want to find a way to quench your thirst. You know, it's like, you know, when it's a hot sunny day, you're going to drink soda or you're going to drink water, you know? Soda's gonna leave you pretty thirsty, pretty sticky. And water's gonna make you feel a lot better. So then, leading to Chochi. There's a question. What question we got? I can't see, man. I couldn't connect it.
We're loading. We're buffering.
Sorry.
Give us a sec. We got that bad Wi-Fi.
Technical difficulties.
Get the bad Wi-Fi.
It's from Gabriel.
Gabriel.
He asks to Chris.
Uh-huh.
Can I ask how you knew that you were in the desert in your example?
My example. So I knew I was in the desert because each weekend that I would go out was never enough, essentially. You know, I wake up, like, whatever I did that night, you know, whatever. Like, I'd wake up the next morning, or even that same night, like, what the heck am I doing? What happened?
Perdón.
Keep going, keep going.
Oh,
You got it.
but literally, like, I'd wake up that night and I was like, what the heck am I doing? I remember one of the last nights, I think I was still at Mason. I went and I was in the car with this dude and he pops out something. I was like, what the heck? You know, like, how are you gonna drive like that? Oh, it's cool. I'm like, okay. And then I started thinking, I was like, what the heck am I doing here, bro? Like, you know, like, we're driving down. It was the weirdest thing. We're driving down this road, and I see a car going the exact opposite way. And the same, like, how did you even get there? And I was like, dude, is that me? You know, like I'm literally going to kill myself right now, you know? Like, what the heck? You know, at the end, that's how you know. Like, you're always empty. You always need that next high, you know, that fix, you know, whatever. I don't want to sound like a crackhead, but you know, you
That's
always
fine.
need something else, you know. Yeah, that's fine. All right. But yeah, that's how I knew, you know, you're never happy. And when I came to church, I never really felt like that, you know. It was always more of a thing. I was like, I want to learn more, and I feel better, and I'm not in some club, you know, whatever, right? So if that
¿Puedo
answers,
decir algo?
yes.
Tag team. Oh,
Ahorita que estaba diciendo lo del desierto, que es
Ajá.
esta parte de
Mhm.
la discusión, estaba
You alright?
no sé.
What do you mean? No sé.
Okay.
Your phone is creating static on the mic.
Ah,
Go ahead,
perdón.
Rana.
Lo siento.
Sí, Rana.
Ok. Me estaba acordando de las veces que, no sé, miré National Geographic o algo así. Que hay una manera en la que puedes agarrar agua. Es del cactus,
Ujú.
pero es como muy amargo para llegar al agua.
Mhm.
Y, o sea, porque los cactus tienen. Y a veces la forma en la que agarramos agua es tan amarga al final de cuentas. Y como preferimos agarrar esa agua tan ¿cómo se dice amarga en inglés? Bitter.
sour, bitter.
Bitter, ajá, de todo that bitter water que el mundo nos da, y como tú dijiste, al final de cuentas te sentías empty and lonely, y como de cierta manera era bitter water,
Mhm.
pero y Dios nos da como este río que habla la Biblia,
Ujú.
el que dice de agua viva, y nunca nunca más vas a tener sed. Y
Ujú.
cómo es tan difícil también agarrar del bitter water, porque es difícil también estar como moverse. Me imagino que es caro,
Ujú.
y que es como
Very caro.
me imagino que es caro, y que es como exhausting.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like you said. Like, why would you go to a cactus when there's a rio? Like, you have to go through these spikes. You know, the water doesn't even taste good. Like, when you're doing these things in these weekends or whatever, like, you're trying so hard to quench this thirst that's never gonna be satisfying. Like you said, bien caro. Like, my boy, I came out one night and I spent $200. I was like, why
That's
did
it?
I keep the tab open? You know, like,
That's it.
he said, that's it. Like, back then I was making $15 an hour, so 200 was a goal.
Not anymore though.
Yeah.
That's that glow up. Not anymore though. That's that glow up.
But yeah, like, you're looking so
Y los
hard.
diezmos,
No, you can check my
Wait,
history.
how much are you?
Nah, chill.
No, we balling out here.
No, chill. I don't know about all that. But yeah, like I said, you're trying so hard to find this water, and it's not even good. You know, like, how many times do you have to go through, you know, all these stages and try to find something that's essentially gonna end up in where you started? You do a circle, like, you end up here thinking you're happy, ha ha ha, and then you come back and you're still depressed and like crying, and I'm out here, you know, talking to myself at night, crying into my pillow. But you know, whatever. But yep. So that was my example. And then this leads to the story of the Samaritan woman, and your boy Josue is gonna go for that.
That's my point. So, I mean, they gave me the job of the last points, and kind of just to wrap it up, because it's a story that I'm gonna be telling. It's from the Bible, obviously, and yeah, I think that what they gave me really wraps this all up really well, and it really talks about my life. It's actually pretty personal what I'm gonna be talking about. And about this story, so I hope you guys enjoy it. It's my first time doing this, so be patient, criticize me, that's fine, it just helps me become better, whatever, then I'll just get straight into it, so we'll switch phones.
Go ahead.
Let me get this.
Damn, my Mac, bro. That's like 3K right there, bro. Alright,
ladies and gentlemen, okay. For those of you following along Bible scripture, old school people, older generation, because our new generations, whatever, you know. We're gonna be reading out of John 4. We're gonna obviously start at verse 1. And it's gonna be through 26. I'm personally not gonna be reading all the verses just because it can get boring and we don't need to do that, obviously. But it's just to depict for those who haven't read it, who need a refresher of the story of the Samaritan woman, and also it's to paint a narrative for our people who have not read the Bible. And I'm one of those people who haven't read every story in the Bible, so I may not know this.
Same.
So our non-Christian viewers, I got you. It's hype. It's a good story. I think you guys are gonna like it. So we're gonna go kindergarten mode real quick. So I want everyone watching, legit close their eyes. I'm gonna paint you the history and the background of this before we start the story, because I think it's very valuable that you get the actual background of this for you to understand how important this is. So if everyone close your eyes, 30 seconds max. Trust me, you're gonna love it. I'm a good storyteller, like Mr. Rogers. So, okay. So for you to understand this story completely, I want you to understand, like I said, the background. There's a couple things to note about the history that's taken place during this time. And during this time, just like in the history of history, there's always been sexism, hate, and there's always been war. So in this story, you can imagine, because it's taking us back a long time ago, the Jews were considered the chosen people of God. So they had favor in God, and they were deemed not the best race, but one of the more special people, chosen people of God, if you will. And everyone in the world knew that. So people kind of hated the Jews because the Jews were very I would say kind of racist to other people, to all the other societies, because they just thought that they were superior and all the races were inferior. So one key thing to know is that the Jews in during this time in history deemed themselves superior compared to all the other races. They also hated the other races. Like I said, they deemed all the other races inferior. And there was a lot of sexism that took place, because it went to this extent that Jewish women, or not even Jewish women, but women in general, had to walk behind the men when the men were walking. The men would not, or the women could not speak to the men unless spoken to. And it was very, very, very uncommon. It was very, very, very uncommon for the men to speak to women outside in public. It was usually all behind closed doors and inside. Another piece of history that, to understand this to its full importance, is that the story where this takes place is called Samaria. And this place was taken over by the Babylonians, which essentially, they took over this place that the Jews owned, that the Jews grew their crops, had their establishment there. They took over this place and basically took all the good people, like the people who were known as doctors, all the people you would seem valuable to society. They took all those people and they left the lowest of classes there to rot, essentially. They left all the people they deemed lowly and, as you can harshly put it, degenerates. And those are the people that were left in Samaria. So it's literally the lowest of the low, the worthless, quote unquote, of people left there. And what happened there, like I mentioned earlier, the Jews were already there, and the Babylonians took over it. But when they took over it, they left it. So the Jews and the people that were left there intermarried, which is a big no-no in Jewish society. Like I said, how Jewish people thought they were the supreme or the better race. Jewish people were not allowed to intermingle or to marry or to have relationships and obviously birth children with other races. So it got just about, like, before we get into the story, it got this bad where Samaritans were known as half-breeds. They considered them lower than the trash. It was like this. This is the chain of command. It was Jews, Gentiles, literally garbage, and then there are the Samaritans. So that's just a bit of background before we get into it.
Depressing.
Yeah, it's pretty bad, actually. But it's just needed background so you can understand the full length of the story. Like I said, I'm not going to read all of it. I'm just going to summarize it. So essentially, we're starting at the story, the beginning, verse 1. Jesus was in a place called Judea, which is basically the south of where Galilee was, where they're trying to go. And there's 3 routes that you can go. So you know how on Google Maps, Waze, whatever you use, they give you like 3 options, right? Fastest way, this one, the second way is kind of good. And then the third way is like, yeah, I'm not going to do that. It's kind of stupid. That's how it was back then. The fastest way was through Samaria. Like I said, that was a big no-no. So priests, rabbis, whoever was going from Judea to Galilee literally took the huge way around rather than go through this begotten place like through Samaria, which is insane. Back then, you're literally walking off feet or camel, my guy. Like, why would you do that to yourself? So that's how much hate they had toward this place. They're going to a town called Sychar, which a historical figure in the Bible named Jacob, he had his well there. So that's important for later, just so you know. So Jacob is like, let's say he is a BlackBerry phone. Just keep that for later. So Jesus gets to the place. Obviously it's far because they're walking by foot, camel, whatever. And he's tired, right? Jesus is God in human form. He gets tired and he is walking with his boys, his disciples, you know. He's walking, obviously they're tired because they've been walking through literally a desert. Like, who wouldn't be tired? And he sees a woman at the well where he's sitting. So he asks the woman for a drink. Like I said, already, literally in the 3rd verse or the first couple verses, Jesus is already breaking societal norms. He's talking to a woman in broad daylight. And not only a woman, he himself is a rabbi or deemed as important in the religious scheme or the religious hierarchy. And he's already breaking the social norm. And for the people that know about God and Christianity and whatever, Jesus continually throughout his life breaks the social norm of things, and that's what he was called to do on earth. So that's just it kind of just like wraps it up together and it just ties it all together. So it's really interesting that he does that. Obviously the woman is surprised that he asked for a drink, right? Like, she's like, who is this guy talking to me? Does he know that he can't talk to me outside? Like, it's not good. Like, it's really bad. And in verse 10, we're just skipping a little bit. This is what it says. It says, you don't know what God can give you, and you don't know who I am, the one who asked you for a drink. If you knew, you would have asked me, and I would have given you living water. So basically, he's just saying, like, you don't know who I am. I just asked you for a drink. But if you knew who I was, I would give you something so spectacular that you can't even understand it. And something just to mention real quick. This water that he mentions in the Bible is not literal. Like, the water is not literal. It's so beyond comprehension that God has to break it down to something that humans, like, we can understand. Because, like I said, God's not giving you water. He's not giving you, like, Aquafina. He's like, here, this is going to be good, right? He's giving you something eternal that's everlasting. So that's just, keep that in mind for you. Because all this is going to tie in at the end. It's going to be really beautiful. Trust me. So, next verse following that, the woman says how he has nothing to get water. Obviously, you need like a bucket or something to get water from the well. But the woman goes on with the conversation because she's intrigued about what Jesus is offering. And keep in mind, this woman has no idea who this guy is. It's a random guy, right? Obviously, he's dressed kind of nice. He's not from there. So she's kind of like, this guy shouldn't be talking to me. But since he is, I'm really interested in what he's talking about. So that saying, when she's intrigued, it's kind of saying that she suspects that there's a need in your life. For example, right? If I say, yo, can I get some water real quick? And then you're like, nah, and I'm like, hey, I'll give you like $5,000 for the rest of your life, but can I just have some water? You're gonna be like, no, forget about the water, dude. Let me get that $5K every month for my life, because that's the most important thing. That's more valuable to me. So continuing on in the next verse, she recognizes that that Jacob, like I said, Jacob's well is here, and she asks who this guy is in comparison to him. So she recognizes that Jacob is already a great figure in the Bible and at this time historically, and she's asking who he is compared to him. So like I said, right, BlackBerry, right? BlackBerry is a great phone, really popular at the time, but Jesus is the iPhone. There's gonna be some Android haters, but Jesus is the iPhone for all intents and purposes, whatever, right? The iPhone, debatably, right, but just follow along with me, is one of the greatest things to come now, at least phone-wise. Jesus is the best thing and the main thing about the Bible to come. So in that example, it's like so Jacob was already a huge guy, really important, but then Jesus, who is talking to this woman, she doesn't know that, is the best thing that can happen to her. So she's about to have a crazy conversation with her that follows. So Jesus answers, right, to that comparison. She says, everyone who drinks from this well will thirst again, but anyone who drinks from what I give you will never be thirsty again. So going back to that living water talk, verse 15 says, give me this water. This is what the woman says. Give me this water that I will never be thirsty again and won't have to come back here to get more water. So you can see that she's continually intrigued about this living water, because who wouldn't want water that will literally not leave you thirsty again? Like, that'd be awesome to literally walk around, do whatever, and never be thirsty. It's like never sleeping. That'd be super awesome.
I like sleep though.
Sleep's cool. Sleep's cool. No. Sleep's cool. That's a bad one. But yeah, like it'd be totally awesome. But the thing is, like I said, Jesus is saying this figuratively, not literally. So continuing on with the story, it's about to get really personal. So Jesus says, yeah, I'll give you some, but go get your husbands real quick. Like, I'll give you some, but go get your husband real quick. And the woman replies, I don't have any husbands. Like, she's just saying, like, I don't really have any. But knowing God, he's all powerful, all knowing, he knows that she doesn't have a husband right now. But in fact, she's actually had 5 husbands prior, which is pretty insane. So we're about to get really personal, and it's really uncomfortable, and it's really awesome what happens here. So obviously you can tell if a woman or a guy or anybody has had several marriages, it's a completely uncomfortable topic to talk about. And that's what happens here. The woman tries to switch the topic within the next couple verses, saying something about the mountains and worshiping God. Like, that's totally irrelevant. And it kind of just relates to us, how when we talk about something that makes us uncomfortable, we try to switch the subject, because rather than addressing our own feelings and our own problems, we'd rather talk about something else. So I thought that was really interesting. But God's like, dude, shut up. Like, stop talking. Like, he's like, woman, listen. It's like, it will not matter where you worship at that time now. And basically the rest of the passage, because I'm just going to go over it real quick. The rest of the passage talks about how true worshipers will come and worship in spirit and truth. But that's kind of irrelevant right now for what we're trying to talk about the water of life. In verse 25, the woman says, I know the Messiah is coming, because at this time, like I said, Jesus is here. Word of the Messiah or word of Jesus is spreading around all around the world. And obviously it hasn't reached certain points like Samaria, because why would it? Like, people have forsaken them. Like, people don't give a crap about Samaria. So that's why it hasn't really reached there, but it's spreading all around the world. So this woman doesn't know that he's here or near her, or nevertheless, like, talking to him. Like, she's literally talking to Jesus. And this is when the mind explosion comes in verse 26. Literally, God's like, he is talking to you now. I am the Messiah. And what's really important, and a lot of people don't know this, is that this is the first time in the Bible, in the New Testament, that Jesus reveals himself to someone. So think of how crazy that is. He hasn't told the religious, like the top of the religious priests, like the kings and queens or whatever, like the people that are high up in power. He didn't give a crap about them. He didn't tell them, hey, I'm the Messiah. He doesn't care about them. The real thing is that Jesus here cares about the common person, the person that is forgotten. And he reveals himself to you. He'd rather reveal himself to you than the other people, because you are the one that needs. You are the one that is lacking. So just to highlight some quick points, and just like the obvious points are obviously the grace of God, the foundation of evangelism, because he's traveling to other places, and true worship, right? But that doesn't matter. Let me blow your mind real quick, because I know we don't have too much time. You know how earlier we were talking about, it's really funny, like literally the point before this, we were talking about the sour water, right? The bitter water.
Yeah.
Right. So let me read you something real quick. In Numbers 5:15, for those who are following along, I'm just gonna read this real quick. This is what would happen. Sorry. This is what would happen to people or adulterers back in the day. Like I said, it was very cutthroat and very, like, people didn't care. Like, if you did something wrong, you're a sinner or whatever, off with your head. Like, you will die. You deserve to die. So remember, the woman was an adulterer, and we're gonna go back to what would usually happen to adulterers. So it says, if that happens, he must take his wife to the priest. The husband must also take an offering of 8 cups of barley flour. He must not pour oil or incense in the barley flour. The grain is offering to the Lord that is given to the husband, and the offering will show that he thinks his wife has been unfaithful to him. So obviously, if the man thought the woman was being unfaithful, they take them to the priest. And I'll skip over the stuff, but this is essentially what happened. The priest would take the ground floor from the temple, which is holy, and they'd put it in water. If the woman drank the water and couldn't give children anymore, couldn't bear children anymore, it shows that she was guilty of adultery, and that her punishment and her crime was not to be able to give children anymore. And obviously, if it wasn't, then nothing would happen to her. But the water that was mixed with the clay and the dirt from the ground was obviously bitter. It's not going to taste good. Now we're going to jump to John 19:28, which I can just read this right here. It's basically when Jesus is on the cross, right? It goes back to that verse, John 3:16. Basically, in John 19:28, Jesus is on the cross, and this is the highlighting point where he takes, where he's obviously thirsty, and they're giving him, the soldiers that are guarding him, they give him some sour wine. That's all they had to give to him. They gave him some sour wine. After he drinks that wine, he literally says, "It is finished." What God's trying to say with this and the woman and this well, right, is that Jesus takes your sin from you, and he literally died for you because of that. After he drank that sour wine related to that sour water, right, he takes that, and that's literally all he needs. That's literally what he came here to do on earth. He died on earth for you, so you can be saved, so you can have an opportunity to be saved.
Amen.
So it's really crazy that it all ties in together, and I know that we don't have too much time left, but I thought it was super insane how this sour water that we have, that can be used in so many examples, right? That sour water can be, it can be girlfriend, boyfriends. Like, I've been hurt, let me just go to another boyfriend. Let me seek another girlfriend. Oh, my boyfriend or my ex-boyfriend, my ex-girlfriend cheated on me. Let me look for another one to fill that empty place in my heart. I'm hurt from this XYZ. Let me just get drunk and wasted every weekend. I'm hurt by XYZ. Let me get high on the weekends with my friends to forget about my problems. I'm hurt by XYZ. Let me ignore God, who is always constantly reaching out for you to make the first step, but I'd rather deal with my problems my own. I'm going to talk about my stuff personally in the questions, but this was kind of crazy, and I wish we had more time, because I skipped it completely.
We'll just hop up.
Part two.
Part two.
Do you wanna? So, how long is your personal one?
No. We can go next.
We can kind of wrap up, and then when we got part 2, we'll do your personal one, and then we can start
No, that's basically it. Like, just summarizing that sour water. Literally, God took it before he died on the cross, and after he took it, it was finished. Like, he basically, that's when he saved the world, essentially. So I thought it was pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so There probably will be a part 2. We're gonna wrapping everything up. This living water. A lot of people don't realize that this is essentially all that we need, and we tend to go into these little ways and pick random crap essentially to try to make everything work out. And at the end, like, there was a video in the Bible Project, it talked about how we started in the Eden, right? They had everything they needed, but our selfish desires always leads us to this path of destruction, Back then it was, knowledge or, whatever it may be. Every time we veer the path that God wants us to go, we always end up finding like hopelessness, because we always think, that car I want is gonna make me happy, that job that I want is gonna make me happy. So essentially, we need to realize that nothing we can do will essentially make us happy forever. It's always just gonna be a sense of like almost like false hope. Like, like if I get this, my life is complete. There's rich people that like literally are depressed. Happiness isn't met when you do certain things, only God can fill that void. So when we come back, we're gonna have a discussion. We're gonna have questions for Belen, me, and Chochi.
They want to hear Chochi's story.
Yeah, and we will do Chochi's story, of course. So we'll start with his story.
I'm cool now.
Yeah, we'll start with his story, and then we'll end up doing the discussion if anyone has questions. And then we go from there. So, should we just let time run out, or we hop out for a little bit? Alright, so then we'll see you guys. Probably give us like...
Intermission.
Intermission. Probably 2-3 minutes. Alright, see you in a little bit.
Ooh.